The NRC licenses us to operate, and we have to have so much safety equipment in service at any given time. We have to do tests on it. We have to do maintenance on it. And if something isn't quite right, then it has to be evaluated to make sure you can continue to operate. And if you don't meet conditions, you have to shut down, if that makes sense. So I was the one, when I was licensed, that was responsible for signing all the documents and making sure we were licensed to operate legally.
Wow.
Ultimately, we're responsible for the health and safety and welfare of the public. We're right across the river from Williamsburg, just south of the James River. Williamsburg's directly across the river. So if there was to be some type of event, it would impact a large number of people.
One of the things that I love about Bridge is that it brings people together from different backgrounds. And I have a Bridge partnership. Well, we've played 2 times. We've yet to win an event, but we've played in a sectional, two sections of a sectional.
Yeah, we won them both, I think.
Did we win them both?
Yeah.
No, we definitely didn't win both of them.
No, I know we were first in at least one. I think maybe a first and a second, but maybe just out of first in both.
Well, this is a terrible introduction.
Yeah, sorry.
But maybe this is where we got to. But we played in maybe arguably more importantly, we played in a regional Swiss a couple weeks ago. I was not feeling great, and your wife was also in the event, and her team beat us.
Yes.
So anyway,
that's many times that happened.
That is a terrible way of introducing my friend Tracy Brines to the Setting Trick. Welcome, Tracy.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
Same. As I said earlier to you, I was talking to a friend who's from your neck of the woods the other day, and I was asking him about what I now know is the Surrey. I was like,
Surrey Nuclear Power Station.
Surrey Nuclear Power Station.
There you go.
So I was asking my friend who's from Suffolk, Virginia, about the power plant because I knew that you worked there, and we talked about it when we played recently. We talked about how you're a project manager at the Surrey nuclear plant, and you said that your job was basically like Homer Simpson.
Well, not here. I moved here from Maryland. I worked at a nuclear plant, Calvert Cliffs Nuclear Power Plant in southern Maryland, about 70 miles southeast of D.C. And that's where I worked in the control room. So I was licensed, and that was Homer Simpson. I'd sit there and hope nothing went wrong, essentially, watching all the pretty lights. That's the layman's way of looking at it. But
so as I was saying, I know nothing about, we've got a power plant. I live in Charlottesville, Virginia. There's a power plant called Lake Anna here.
Yep.
It's like an hour away probably. I know, I know there's 4 nuclear reactors in Virginia.
Yeah,
now.
two of them here at Surrey and 2 at North Anna.
Right.
Right off Lake Anna. That's right. We're sister plants, so we're all with the Dominion nuclear fleet. Dominion Energy actually owns those 4 plus 2 plants in Connecticut of all places, and then 1 in South Carolina. So that's how, and we all work together as a fleet, if you will.
So you told me you're a project manager there now.
That's right.
But you used to work in the control room.
Yeah, I was in operations department. So that's so when you're hired, what I did is when I was first hired, I had to go through 18 months of school. So I was paid to go to school for 18 months, but it was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. And then I got certified as a senior reactor operator, and that basically meant that when I was on shift, I was responsible for operating the nuclear plant legally. So there's all these legal. The NRC licenses us to operate, and we have to have so much safety equipment in service at any given time. We have to do tests on it. We have to do maintenance on it. And if something isn't quite right, then it has to be evaluated to make sure you can continue to operate. And if you don't meet conditions, you have to shut down, if that makes sense. So I was the one, when I was licensed, that was responsible for signing all the documents and making sure we were licensed to operate legally.
Wow.
Ultimately, we're responsible for the health and safety and welfare of the public. We're right across the river from Williamsburg, just south of the James River. Williamsburg's directly across the river. So if there was to be some type of event, it would impact a large number of people. And obviously, safety is our number one priority.
So, who paid for you to go to school for 18 months?
They paid me. The company paid me to go to school.
Not Dominion.
I was working for Exelon. So Calvert Cliffs was part of the Exelon fleet. They're more in the Northeast. This was in Maryland. So I was there. And then it's kind of funny because once you get licensed, they never want to let you go because they put so much time into you. So, yeah. And it's rotating shifts. So I do 12-hour shifts, 12 on, 12 off, rotate days, nights, back and forth. And quite frankly, my body was wearing down. It's a young man's game. I mean, it just is. And as I got older, I actually developed diabetes from being on shift from my irregular sleep schedule. So I ended up having to change companies in order to get out of that role because they just won't let you go. So
how did you get into? I know you were in the military.
Yeah, I was. After college, I joined the Navy and I went to officer candidate school. Solely from there, I went through the nuclear power pipeline. So I went to the Navy nuclear power pipeline. That was about 2 years of schooling also. So throughout my career, I probably have spent 5 or 6 years in school, but we're well trained.
So what is the nuclear power pipeline like in the Navy?
Once I was commissioned, I spent 6 months at nuclear power school. That's just learning like the theory, base, all that stuff, like the thermodynamics, the electrical theory, the nuclear theory, all that stuff. And then we had 6 months of it's called prototype, but it's a running reactor. And I went in Charleston, so just right up the Cooper River from Charleston. They took a submarine and they actually ran the reactor and they trained students on it. So I was there for 6 months, going through all the drills, just like I would at sea. So they'd run the turbine generator would trip, and we had to go out and respond appropriately by operating the right equipment to restore the plant to a safe condition, if you will.
Wow.
And then from there, I went through, I was surface, so I went aircraft carriers, so I had to go to surface warfare school up in Newport, Rhode Island. And then I moved to Virginia, Norfolk, where I was stationed on the Harry Truman and also on the USS Enterprise back in the early 2000s. So, and then I got out in 2009. So I did 14 years in the military and then got out.
But now I understand from one of your bridge partners, Joyce Goldstein, told me that you served in Afghanistan.
Iraq, actually. So that's one of the reasons I got out because so I left. I was getting ready to transfer off the Enterprise, and they were directed. This is during the Gulf War, 2007. So the Marines were hemorrhaging officers because all their officers were over deployed, and since they were deployed so much, they were just getting out because they were wore out and they couldn't find enough staff officers. And really, staff work is staff work. I was on the second MEF in Fallujah, Iraq, for 10 months. And while I was second Marine Expeditionary Force.
Oh, okay.
So the MEF, sorry, So I was with the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force in Fallujah, Iraq, and I was on the general staff. And I would basically read reports and go out and look at I was a critical infrastructure security planner, which has nothing to do with anything other than I was just a warm body. So I'd go out and look at, for instance, when I left, there were cell towers and stuff that's what the insurgents were destroying, the cell towers. So I'd go out and do inspections to make sure they were properly secured to prevent any type of explosions, and then I'd write reports and that on it. So it was interesting, but nothing I wanted to live through again. But ultimately, that gave me the infamous joint experience. So I was now considered to work with Navy and Marines And then I was up for orders, and they wanted to send me to Afghanistan with the Air Force. And quite frankly, I didn't want to get shot at again, so I said,
Got it.
So the one time I was shot at, the Marine said duck, and I was happy to oblige. I said, I'll just sit here and wait till you tell me I can get up. So
the aircraft carriers, they're nuclear powered, aren't they?
They are nuclear powered, yeah, nuclear propulsion. So it's if you think of nuclear power as a fancy way of making steam, we were just a steam ship with a fancy way of making steam. So the steam turns we heat up water, which heats up the steam, which turns the turbine generators to produce electricity and turns the main engines to make the ship go through the water. That's all it is. And it's very similar here at commercial world in that we make steam, which turns a turbine generator, which produces a whole bunch of electricity. So that's
because when I think of a nuclear power plant, I think like, ooh, that's man, like that. Ooh, that sounds kind of scary.
Yeah, it's interesting, and really, they've done a lot of error prevention techniques and how to prevent errors, and some of these actually have helped my bridge game, I think, which is funny, oddly enough, because I draw analogies. A good example is, I don't know if you noticed, we were sitting north-south in the team game, and I only put one board on the table at a time. I always take that one off, and I'd put the next. And that's a human performance tool, and it's designed to prevent people from actually taking cards out of two boards at once. Because I've been at the table. I'm sure you may or may not have ever seen that, but where people bid hands from the same board or from two different boards. Probably happens more at the club than higher levels, but it's kind of funny. So by only having one board on the table, you're guaranteed that no one's going to draw hands from the wrong card.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known that if you hadn't pointed out, but it does ring a bell. I would, yeah.
But it's funny because the Institute of Nuclear Power Operations was devised after 3 Mile Island, and they did studies on different types of errors, and they've really defined 3 major kind of error levels. And one is it's called, there's levels, and one's called knowledge based, and it's really lack of knowledge. But when you're operating in the knowledge based zone, it means that you don't have complete information. And that's where a lot of in your error rate, when you're in that area. So operators, when they go out and it's something unexpected, they're going to have error rates upwards of maybe 50%. And obviously, so you never want a nuclear operator to operate there, which is why we spend so much time training. But in the bridge world, I think that we spend a lot of time in knowledge space, because you're trying to judge, from the auction, what does declare have, what does the partner. So that's why you just can't get bridge hands right all the time. I think. I mean, and then the second level is called rule based.
You call it the knowledge space.
Knowledge based. Knowledge space. Yeah. The next is rule space, and rule space means you have enough knowledge that you're applying general rules that generally work, but you still have upwards of 10% error rates. And then the last is you operate in skill-based mode. And I think this is where the really good bridge players have a tremendous advantage over myself as an amateur, because they played so much that to them certain plays are just automatic, where I have to spend time thinking about them. So I'm operating in the rules-based space, whereas they're in the skill space. And there the error rate is maybe only 1 in 10,000, 1 in 1,000. So they make far fewer errors just because of the level of experience they have with that. And in nuclear power, we do the same thing. We try to do a lot of training. We run drills so that if something does go wrong, that we're at least in the rule space, and operators can take general actions based upon experience. So it's kind of interesting. I was thinking of that when you were telling me you wanted to interview for this. I thought that was a neat tie-in.
No, it's a new concept for me. I mean, you think about it. Like, I can give you an example. I remember I was having lunch between rounds of the Vanderbilt in Memphis, and there was a deal where my partner and I got to 6 diamonds. I had like a 19 count or 18 count with 5 ace, king, jack of diamonds. And my partner bid I rebid a no trump, but no, that's not right. No, I had four. Excuse me, I had four. I had like a good hand that I didn't open a no trump. And so I opened a diamond. My partner bid a major. I rebid one no. My partner bid four no. And I'd already decided that if my partner, made like a quantitative bid, that I was going to bid six diamonds. And so the winning contract was six clubs. You can't make six diamonds. You're on on a diamond finesse. And Roger Lee was at the same restaurant, and they had played the same boards, and they got the six clubs at his table on a 4-3 fit. And what happened was DeClaire took the diamond finesse early, and it was against Marty Fleischer and Chip Martell. And Marty won the Queen of Diamonds, and he played back. He did not play back a diamond, and Roger said that if he had played back a diamond, he might have gone down, because now you have to decide. Like, if trumps break, it's easy, but like if you have to play the hand more carefully. And the diamond was the only entry to the diamonds, I think. But what he said if Chip had been sitting in Marty's seat, he would have won the diamond. He just knows in this situation that it's right to play back a diamond.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He just knows.
Yeah.
And it sounds to me like exactly what you're talking about. Like, it's a skill thing.
Yeah.
Like, he just knows that that's right. Whereas Marty's more like constructing hands and stuff. And
more rule based.
Yes.
Rather than
exactly.
Yeah. So
right.
Yeah. So the mental energy is higher, and you're just make more errors. That's one of the things that INPO, the Institute of Nuclear Power Operations, has shown over now 40 years of being in existence, that there's these different levels. So you always try to operate in skill-based mode. I equate it to driving. If I'm driving down a highway in West Texas, nothing out there, right? The likelihood of running off the road is not very high. But if I'm driving in a city with it raining, it's hilly, maybe Seattle, where it's hilly and raining, it's very likely that I'm going to have an accident, because I'm just not familiar with the area, and it's hard to see, and there's just other distractions. So
tell me about let's go to the bridge. We'll come back to nuclear power, I'm sure. How'd you start? I don't know.
So I played cards in college, mainly spades. We're broke college students, so we played a lot of cards. And one of my professors played bridge, and he introduced me to the game, and I was hooked. I mean, that's just the bottom line. So I think it was my junior year I got hooked. So I went to the club one time, and the little 0.99er game, and picked up a partner, and we did well, and never really looked back. So it was funny, though, throughout the Navy, every time we moved, I moved a lot in the Navy, and every time I'd move, the first thing I'd do is look for a bridge club, and I instantly felt like I was part of the community, because. And I found all bridge players, every club has the same cast of characters. I mean, they just are. It's just sometimes they're men, sometimes they're women, but they all got the same cast of personalities, just different people. It's been quite fun. I mean, that's been one of the joys, is the people. I know it sounds weird, but
what's your current bridge club?
We play in Virginia Beach mainly. We have four games a week with 8 tables, probably an average of 8 tables a game. So they're not real big, but it's doing all right. So we're trying to recruit. Maureen my wife. She just became the unit president, so she's working hard on retention or trying to recruitment. And it's hard to find people that want to play anymore. It's really fun. I think
before we get to,
or go ahead. Oh, I was just going to say, if we could find the people that are interested, I think I could help teach them. But I just don't know how to recruit. I'm just not a salesman. That's the bottom line.
Before we get to your wife, Maureen, are you still in touch with this professor from?
No, I looked him up a couple of years ago. He's since retired. I mean, at the time I met him, he had like 500 points. And to me, that seemed unachievable. Now looking back at it, it's kind of funny, but I hadn't talked to him in probably 15 years or more. So
So he has no idea.
He's probably seen my name. I suspect. There was another guy I did stay in touch with, who was one of the He ran the novice game there at the club that I played in Lubbock at Texas Tech, and I ran into him on OK Bridge and BBO just not too long ago. He's not in very good health, but he called and we talked for a little while. And he said he's seen my name show up occasionally. So.
Did you watch the national championship game when Texas Tech played UVA in it?
Unfortunately, yes. Thanks for pointing that out.
Well, I mean, it's,
I was in the wrong state to be cheering for Texas Tech, though. So.
Who were you?
I was cheering for Texas Tech, but I mean, I'm in Virginia, so no one else was.
Right. Yeah, that was something else. So your wife, Maureen, you guys have been married for 15 years.
15, going on 16 this November, yeah.
And she said you tricked her.
I didn't trick her. She'd never played cards. She literally didn't know a club from a spade, which I still don't. I mean, even I knew that at a young age. But she's ultra competitive though, and so I taught her. I introduced her to the game by playing spades and hearts with the kids. I had two kids, and we played spades and hearts. And then she went with me to a regional in Williamsburg and was kibitzing, and was very confused because I mean, if you don't know what you're looking at. It becomes very confusing very fast. And then one of the directors came up and asked her actually if she'd be willing to fill in the novice game. I don't think I've seen her move so fast before or since to get out of that. But then we downloaded a program off the ACB website. It's called Learn to Play Bridge. I don't even know if it still exists or available.
Yeah.
But it teaches you how to play bridge from nothing up to being a semi-decent player. So we played, and her first year of playing, she won. She was second in the country for points that year for like the under 20 category. And I think she would have won, except she didn't play any of the last 2 months because we moved after I got out of the military. So otherwise, I think she probably would have won. But she's more competitive than I am, actually. So.
Here's the question that I came up with that I'm most excited to ask you. Are you ready for this?
Yep.
We played in a regional the other day. Marines team, we blitzed Marines team, but they beat us.
Yeah, they would have won first overall if we hadn't beat them.
Yeah, she told me that when I was she reminded me of that. I reminded her of that. How would you feel if Marine won an NABC Plus event before you?
I'd be happy. I really would. I am a firm believer that you should celebrate others' successes, even if it's at. I don't want to say I'm not. It's not that I'm not going to try. I'm not going to help someone if they're my opponent. But at the same time, when it's all said and done, I'm the first person to go up and congratulate my opponents for winning, because it's. I mean, they're there to win too, right? I mean, we're all there for the same reason, and celebrating each other's successes is important. So. Doesn't mean I wanted any less, or I wouldn't be jealous, but.
What's the closest you've come?
This is Seattle, whatever year that was, 2011 maybe. And Maureen had been playing bridge for 3 years at the time. We played in the 3-day Swiss. We made it to the third day, which we overachieved big time. And I think we were 30 something. And then we finished in the top 25 in the mixed Swiss in San Diego. Few years back, I don't remember what year. Right, shortly before COVID, so maybe 2017 maybe, I don't remember. So, but that's the closest. I'd really like to win one of those, and I think most competitive bridge players would. But so,
how many master points do you have right now?
Approaching 7,500. So, I've been playing. A lot, 30 years now. So I don't play as much as a lot of people, but I play when I can.
It was a frustrating day in some respects the other day. I led a fifth best spade as fourth best, so we blocked the spade suit. We missed a slam, which didn't really kill us.
But then there was the last hand of the day where I just flat lost concentration and didn't pay attention to the cards you played, which.
That was when you could give me a rough
Yep.
in clubs.
Like we can beat a game which would probably have got us in 4th overall instead of 5th. But that's one of those errors that you make because you're tired, right? So that's another thing in nuclear power is we look at what we call error precursors, and that's things that will lead you to be more likely to make an error. And some of them are fatigue. Some of them are time pressure. So we make a lot of effort not to put time pressure. And unfortunately, Bridge, I put a lot of time pressure on myself. And if it's the last board of the event, you're getting excited to go compare. Maybe you've rushed through things and don't take the time to think. I found that I make a lot of mistakes in the last board of the Swiss match, so I have to really be careful. That's when I need to remind myself to slow down.
When are you next playing?
I'm going to Philadelphia. I'm going to go for the full 10 days. I'm playing in the Spingle, which is fun. I've only played in it once in Chicago a couple of years ago. That was probably the highlight of my. That was the most fun bridge event I ever played, and we advanced the 4-day, and we played the nickel team on day 2.
Oh wow!
And we were down by 7 after the first 3 quarters.
Oh my gosh!
Which just amazes me. But the 4th quarter, the table had a whole different feel to it. It was clear that they were done with us, and they weren't going to let anything happen. So we ended up losing by 40 or something. But it was very clear that they said, "Okay, this is enough." Up till then, it was kind of, I wouldn't say jovial, but it was a little lighthearted. It was friendly. That last quarter was not. I mean, not that we played Eric and Jeff, and not that they were unfriendly. It's just they were much more serious, as bridge players tend to be. They're friendly. It's just they were serious.
So if it was the last time it was in Chicago, so it was Hampson and Greco.
And Greco, yeah. Eric Greco and Jeff Hampson, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because they used to have another Eric. They replaced another Eric and Jeff.
Yeah, in my mind, I knew who I was talking about, but you're right. Yeah. Yeah, this is Hampson and Greco. I should have been clear.
Who was your partner?
I was playing with Joyce Goldstein. She's been my regular partner in nationals now. We met on OK Bridge back in 2018. And then met in Memphis, one Memphis Nationals ago for the first time. And we played pretty regularly at nationals since. We've had, I think, modest success.
Who were your teammates for that?
There was a pair from California, Shale. I can't remember who his partner was. I can't remember his last name either. We had just picked him up at the partnership desk. So.
Wow.
So they played well. I thought we played real well, but it was fun. It was some of the best bridge I've ever played. But we were clearly overmatched. Any
specific hands?
None that I remember. There was a Grand Slam that our teammates bid that was not bid at our table, but I thought it was a bit pushy. But I mean, that's you need to do that when you're not the favorites. So.
Yeah,
I felt like I just played good solid bridge. And sometimes when you're playing, everything seems to make sense, and other times you can't see anything.
Did you think you'd won?
No, I didn't think. After the last quarter, I could just tell that they knew that they'd won based upon just the level of difference in the. I didn't think we had a bad card. I didn't think we lost by 40, but we ended up losing by that second half by 30 something. So I thought it might be close, but I didn't think we won. But it would have been a neat story if we had.
And it's a good story, even though you didn't.
And I mean, those events are fun. I'd like to. I'm looking forward to playing in that again. We're playing with a pair from DC this time. I don't know. You probably know Merrill Hirsch and Monique Smith.
Yeah,
from DC. That's who our teammates are. So.
And you're playing with Maureen?
I'm playing with Joyce. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Joyce,
yeah. The spin goal. That's done getting tougher than that.
No, it's fun. So I found that playing with Maureen, there's too much emotion involved. It's just easier not to play with your spouse because it's just different. So I don't know how to explain. I'm sure many people that played with their spouse know
that. Are you playing the Life Master pairs?
We're playing the Life Master pairs as well, and then I'm playing with Maureen in the mixed BAM because I don't expect to make it to day 3 of the spin gold. But if we do, then she understands.
And do you have teammates for the mixed BAM?
Yeah. So, and then we'll play in the 3-day Swiss at the end.
I meant like, are you playing at the club this week or something?
Oh,
You know, like,
I've started giving lessons on Friday. They have a game every Friday, and I work 4/10, so I'm off Fridays. So I've started doing like hour lessons before the game. I'm actually going through Mike Lawrence's book on how to locate your opponent's high cards, and
yeah.
just exposing some of the intermediate players to the thought process involved, and how to count hands, and how to think at the bridge table, for lack of a better term. And so I usually play from Friday, so I'll be playing with Maureen this Friday. But we typically do pretty well. It's not. I mean, I feel like at the club I'm competing against myself. I don't really worry if I win or lose, because there's so much randomness that happens. I can tell if I play well. That's really what matters. So,
Did you ever think Maureen was going to be like really into it when you started?
yeah, it was apparent early on that she is extremely competitive and she doesn't like to lose. And she, yeah, so if she really put the time and effort into it, she could be phenomenal. She doesn't put a lot of time into studying it the way most players do, but she's got very good instincts, and but that's what she chooses. She's not a bridge nut like some of us are. So she has other interests, as odd as that may seem.
I mean, she's a trip.
Yep. Yeah. Keeps me on my toes. We have one friend that says we deserve each other. And that's probably the best way to put it. Doesn't feel sorry for either one of us.
Yeah, I talked to her for a good while this morning just to get ready for this conversation. She was telling me how you met through she used to breed Shelties.
Yeah, she bred Shelties, and I'd just gone through my divorce, and I had custody of the kids, and I wanted to get him a dog, so I went to get her a Sheltie, and this one he only had 5 front teeth. He was missing one of his canines, so I got him at a discount. And come to find out, he was actually kind of a pain in the ass, but she wanted to get rid of him, but she ended up with him anyways.
Yeah, that was what she said.
So
yeah,
so that was kind of a funny story. So you never know quite how you're going to meet people.
Right. So. Yeah. She said she wanted to get rid of this dog because it was such a bad dog, and then she ended up she gave it to you for a discount. Ended up with the dog.
No, it's funny because I think the first time I knew she was hooked on bridge was we went to Gatlinburg. She had maybe 8 or 10 points, and we went to Gatlinburg and we played in the knockout. And this was back when they had 35 brackets or whatever, and we were in like bracket 7. And we ended up second place in this bracket, and she more than tripled her points. And at that point, she's like, "Ooh, this is easy." So, yeah, at that point, I knew she was hooked. And Gatlinburg, just seeing I don't know if you've ever been there, if you've ever been to the regional there.
Just one time.
But to stand at one end of the room and look down that whole hall and see all those tables set up, it's just it's impressive. The number of people sitting there playing.
I don't think I went like 2 or 3. I went 2 or 3 years ago, so I think it was past its sort of.
Yeah, in its heyday, they used to have 13,000. They had 13,000 tables one year, I think, over the course of a week. So they couldn't fit They had that big hall with the gun and knife show, and they couldn't fit all the tables in there. Some people had to play upstairs. Now I don't even think they bother renting the upstairs.
So you started out with a professor at Tech.
Yep.
You had played spades before. Had you played spades with friends or with?
Yeah, we just sat around. I had a roommate that played, and we'd sit around our trailer at night and play cards, and just nothing real exciting, probably. And then after I learned how to play bridge, I bought a book, and we all kind of learned how to play bridge together. I took it more seriously, went to the club, and then I joined the military, and I played some of the military, but I mean, I was always working and deployed, so as well. So, but that's the funny thing.
Did you play spades in the military?
No, I didn't. Nobody played cards on the ship. We really didn't have to. I mean, we were deployed. We were working. So, but when I was in Iraq, I had a partner. I don't know if you know Ann Duty, the director. She was my regular partner for several years, from 2000 to 2007 or 2008. And when I was deployed to Iraq, I would go to the internet cafe at night, and she'd log on about 5 in the evening, and we'd play some bridge on OK Bridge for a couple hours once a week. That was my So it'd be midnight, and I'd get up and walk to the internet cafe. It was always too busy. You were limited to half an hour during the day, so I'd go at night when there was no one there. That was my bridge fix for the week. So that was kind of fun. It kept me sane. So
why did you? Because in your bridge winners profile it says you hardly are on BBO.
I probably need to update that because that was probably written back when I was on OK Bridge and I was on BBO. But then I've since migrated to BBO. So that's probably written 6-7 years ago now. Probably need to update that. Maybe make a note, update Bridge Winners profile.
Was OK Bridge? I've never even played on OK Bridge. Maybe I did one time actually.
I joined OK Bridge in 96, 97, so it was the early mid late 90s, and I played on that all the time until I migrated in 28. Well, that's where I met Joyce on OK Bridge, so it would have been 2019, 2020 that I actually migrated to BBO. It just got to the point where everyone else had migrated, and the games were so small, and so I said, "Well, I want to go where the games are." So.
Did they have ACBL master point
They did,
okay?
And they had ACBL. It was the nice thing about OK Bridge is it was a set fee, so you paid it was $150 a year for a membership, and you could play in as many ACBL games or tables as you wanted. And they used to just have you used to be able to go on there and just, if you had a partner, you'd log on and serve a table, and within 2 or 3 minutes you'd have 2 people joining you looking for a game as well. And they had a system called layman rating, and people are always concerned, and people tended to play well. It wasn't I don't know if you ever played some of the random BBO games, but just serving a table, you get, it's just terrible. I don't even do it anymore because it's not worth it.
Yeah, for sure.
But on OK Bridge was actually competent level bridge.
What was the layman rating?
It just was a rating that you got, and every week it updated, so it compared how you did on the boards versus how your layman rating and your opponent's layman rating, and then your score. So if they had a bad rating and you got a 52%, your rating might actually go down. So you actually had to beat up on the bad pairs and only break even on the good pairs for your rating to go up. But
do you remember what your peak rating was?
No, I don't remember. I don't. I want to say 65 something, but I don't remember. And 50 was average. So, but I don't know what. But it changed every week based upon how you did. Of course, it became addictive because I have too many bad scores. I got to play more to get good scores, so I don't go down this week. And it was a marketing ploy.
Do you think you noticed Joyce's layman rating when you were deciding whether or not you would play with her?
I'm sure I did. I'm sure the first time we played, I don't even remember how we sat down to play with each other. But we hit it off. We played in some tournament and had a really nice game, and then we exchanged emails and played again, and then we met and we met live in Memphis. We didn't play together in Memphis the first time, but we teamed together, and then we made plans to play after that. And we played quite a bit during COVID. She was in New York, so she was confined down here in Southeast Virginia, a little more rural. We got out, could still go out and do stuff, but.
And I also spoke with Linda Marshall, who you've played with in the NAP qualifying.
Yeah, I played with Linda a couple times. She's a nice lady. We haven't played a lot, but she's definitely someone I enjoy playing with.
She said you played so well as her opponent against her teammates in the GNT back in like 2009 or something that they said they had to add you to the team. Back
in 2009 when I played against Linda, we played against her team in the finals of the Flight B GNTs, and I thought we played lights out. It turns out our teammates had an off day, but they were a 4-man team, and after we lost, they asked us to join their team to go to the Nationals. So we got a trip to DC because that's where the Nationals were at that year. So So I got the distinction of losing that event twice because I lost in the finals of the district level, and then we made it to like the second day of the knockout, and then lost in the national level. So I got to lose the event twice. So, but it was kind of neat to get asked to be their teammates after they beat us. So
You played the GNT this year, didn't you?
um, it wasn't this year. Last year I did. A lot of times my work schedule interferes with the GNTs for whatever reason.
But didn't I reach out to you possibly about playing GNT together?
Oh no, I played with Musa this last year. Yeah, you asked me if I could play with Ethan, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I was already obligated to play with Musa. That's right.
How did you guys do it?
We did not qualify, so, but it happens.
So what's like the most critical thing you've ever faced as a control room operator?
Let's see,
like the scariest thing.
Yeah, well, this would have been in the Navy. I was on the Enterprise and we were leaving the shipyard, and they had done the buoyancy calculations wrong, and as we were leaving, they scraped a sandbar, and that caused the condensers to suck up all kinds of sand and silt, and it blocked the cooling water flow. So all the reactors, and the Enterprise had 8 reactors, they all tripped offline. They all scrammed, as they call it. Commercial world's called tripping. So they tripped offline, and all the emergency safety systems actuated, and we had to take all the emergency actions. And it's the only time I've been involved in a reactor shutting down automatically. So we had to take all the actions to cool the core without any type of seawater available. And of course, at the time, we didn't know exactly what had happened. We just knew that all the plants were having problems. So fortunately, there were tugboats there that could guide the ship back to the dock safely. But it was quite intense. We actually had all the operators leave the engine room because it got so hot down there. It was 140 degrees, and we were sending them down there in 10-minute shifts wearing ice vests to go down and operate the valves and whatnot. So it was quite intense. Probably from a commercial world. I mean, I've done a lot of drills, and drills don't. I got called in. This was actually the night of the 2016 election. They had a reactor trip. I wasn't on shift, but they called and said anybody that's available come in. So I went in that night and had to help them shut it down and put everything in a safe condition. We blew a valve blew out that had a hydraulic fluid that caused the turbine valves to shut, which shut down the reactor automatically. So that was quite hectic.
When you're in the control room, are you in there by yourself, or how many other people are in there with you?
So there's two senior reactor operators. Each of us had a unit, so we each control, and then each senior reactor operator has 2 control room operators that are in there with them, and they're the ones that run the board. We kind of stand back and monitor and watch and keep the big picture, whereas they go in and actually operate the switches and stuff. And then out in the plant, there's 5 non-licensed operators they're operating valves and pumps and breakers out in the plant. So they're running around. They're the hands, and then we're the brains, for lack of a better term. I mean, they're all trained on what to do, but we're directing them and setting priorities for them.
And do you ever have to?
Yeah. Go ahead.
No,
I was just going to say a lot of it's just setting priorities and making sure that you do the first thing first. So,
do you ever have to wear the little suit?
I have had to wear they call it anti-seize, the yellow banana suits. I have had to wear those in the past. When we go in containment during our refueling outages, because we shut down every 18 months to refuel the reactor. And when we go into containment, it's considered a contaminated area. So they make us dress out in Tyvek suits. And fortunately, I never have to go in a respirator. Some people go in areas they have to wear respirators. I do not. I don't like wearing them, but I don't ever feel unsafe or anything.
Is that the worst job at the plant?
Yeah, I think they call them the deconners because they're the ones that go in and decontaminate everything. So they're the ones that have to go in and clean up everything. So yeah, I think they probably have one of the worst jobs.
So we were talking about the Tyvek suits,
Yep.
and going into the people that have to decontaminate. When you say that you have to refuel, are you like putting uranium in it?
Yeah, so we have fuel rods, and so when you shut down the reactor, the first thing we do is we have to cool everything down, and then we take the reactor, we depressurize the reactor. It's normally pressurized like 2,250 pounds, so it's extremely high pressure. And it's like 547 degrees is the temperature, so it's hot.
Wow.
And so then we cool down, we depressurize, we take the reactor vessel apart and take the reactor head off. Where it's cooled and it's away from everything, so that then we can do maintenance. Because, as I mentioned earlier, we have the legal requirements for safety systems online, and when the reactor vessel's offloaded, those safety systems can all be shut down, and that's when we shut down and do all of our maintenance. And then they reload about half the fuel, two-thirds of it goes back in, and then we put 1/3 new fuel in. So each fuel cell goes through 3 cycles, if you will. And then after the fuel's back in, then we put things back together and pressurize up and heat up, and then start up and do all the testing, and then start operating. And most outages are roughly 25 days, and because you're not making money when you're shut down, that all hands are on deck during an outage is the prime hardest time of the year, and it's I work 13-hour days, 6 days a week, from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm.
And this fall is actually a long outage. It's 56 days, and that's just because of the maintenance we're doing. So starting in early October, I'm going to disappear till Christmas, because I'll be working 78 to 80-hour weeks for 6-7 weeks. Actually about 8 weeks, but yeah, it's a very long, arduous process. Because before I became a project manager here, I actually spent 6 years as the outage coordinator. So my job was, I was the one that coordinated and planned and executed all these. So that was a big job. So it's quite interesting. It's fascinating, really. But
where do they get the uranium from?
Our uranium, I believe, is fabricated in Lynchburg. That's where everything's fabricated from, and then they send the fuel rods down here. And they.
What's a fuel rod like? What's it look like?
It's a little 8x8 fuel cell, about yay big, and it's 8 feet long, metal, and then it's full of fuel pins. So the way, I don't know how familiar you are with nuclear physics, if at all, but so a uranium atom absorbs a neutron, and then that neutron causes the uranium atom to become unstable, which then it explodes, and it produces heat, and it produces more neutrons, and then those neutrons are absorbed by nearby uranium atoms, which then explode. And that's what's defined as critical, when the number of neutrons being created equals the number of neutrons being absorbed by uranium. So power level's steady, and I don't know if that makes that's a simple term. I'm not sure if that's a puzzled look, or you just ready to move on to a different topic.
No, I mean,
I'm trying to give layman's terms, because I could spend hours talking about it, and that's not. I don't think. I mean, it's interesting, but
who's like the most senior person at the facility?
We have a site vice president, who's the person in charge of the facility. He's site vice president, and then we have a plant manager, and everyone really works for the plant manager. The site vice president worries about the commercial aspects. The plant manager really runs the plant. But it's funny, because the person that really has all the power is the person that's been licensed the longest, and he's not in the management team. He's just an operator, but he's got the most seniority. He's held a license for, I'm not sure how long ours has been here, 30 years probably. He's had a license. And he's the one that ultimately makes decisions if there's anything controversial. He's the one that says yes or no. It's his. And so he's the one that will bottom line all important, super important decisions. It's not the plant manager. It's not the site vice president. It's the senior license. So he's not in the money making chain. His sole job is safety, safety of the plant, which is, it's good to have those separated, right? Keep safety and operation separate. So you don't have to worry about he's not worried about making money. He's worried about operating safely. So what your question was kind of a loaded question, I guess. Yeah. So,
no, I mean, it's, but my family, so I was born in Philadelphia, and we actually had to evacuate for 3 Mile Island.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that you wouldn't have been very old then. I think you're roughly my age. You would have been, what, 6 or 7, maybe 8 years old at the time?
Oh, not even. I was born in 76, so I think I was like 2 or 3.
Okay, so you're a couple years younger than I am. But yeah. So 3 Mile Island did change the industry. As I mentioned, INPO was stood up, Institute of Nuclear Power Operations. And each plant sends representatives to Atlanta to INPO to serve on the INPO team. And they go around and inspect the other plants in the industry to make sure that they're operating safely. And you get a grade. INPO gives a grade to each power plant each year, or I guess every 2 years they come out, and they are what certify you to continue to operate. And if your INPO rating goes down, management probably tends to lose their jobs, and the company is charged more from a insurance standpoint, whereas plants with high INPO ratings get lower insurance rates and the management tends to get promoted. So it rewards, but the difference between a high performing plant and a low performing plant is really almost negligible. If you were to walk on without knowing anything to one plant and another, you wouldn't know the difference. It takes a pretty trained eye to see the difference between which plants are top. And one of the things we stress is continuous learning. We really do stress always improving, which I think is another parallel with Bridge. I feel like if you're not getting better, then you're probably getting worse. And that's kind of the nuclear power way. So they're very self-critical. So I think as a Bridge player, I'm probably more self-critical than most because that's how I'm trained. But I think most good Bridge players are very self-critical. I think you have to be.
I think it's reassuring just as a, a human being, because it came across at the beginning of our conversation, like how important safety is,
Yeah, safety is clearly the number one priority.
I think that's yeah.
And we sink and swim as an industry. If the 3 Mile Island really did, there were a lot of plants out there that were not built because of 3 Mile Island. They stopped them and never restarted building them. And I think the industry realized that if one plant could shut down, and then a few years later, 84, you had Chernobyl, but on a level of scale, Chernobyl was probably thousands of times worse than 3 Mile Island. There's actually no deaths directly attributed to 3 Mile Island. Now and it was an increase in cancer deaths in that area, but it's hard to judge how much of that was from 3 Mile Island, but there clearly was an effect. But Chernobyl, there's areas of the Ukraine that are still not inhabitable to this day. So they have to send robotics in there to do inspections because the radiation levels would kill people. So it's just it's unfathomable the difference in the two accidents. So,
how much did you talk about Chernobyl in your training?
I've had probably 8-10 case studies over my career on Chernobyl, and probably 8 or 10 on 3 Mile Island, and 2 or 3 on Fukushima now. That's another one of the more recent ones. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that one is Fukushima was the earthquake in Japan that it was designed for a 30-foot tsunami, and they had a 35-foot tsunami. So the water washed over the seawall and got in the plant, and it affected their electrical systems. And there were some cultural differences. For instance, we have some of the plants that are exactly designed as Fukushima. And our operators are trained if we meet certain conditions that we take certain actions regardless. And we're empowered to do that. And we're not only empowered, we're legally obligated to do that. Whereas the Japanese culture is such that they felt the need to get permission from all the way up to the prime minister in some cases to take actions. And they couldn't get a hold of people fast enough to take the actions appropriately. So I'm convinced that if Fukushima had happened here, there would have been a radiation release, but the reactor would not have exploded. Whereas over there, it actually exploded because they didn't take the actions they should have. And that's a pretty common consensus in the industry. So, but
what happened at 3 Mile Island?
So the industry was hiring mostly Navy nuclear operators, and they still do. They hire a lot of ex-Navy because we already have the training and background. And they had one of the pumps tripped offline, one of the cooling pumps, and the operators responded with Navy training rather than with commercial nuclear power training. And the plants are designed slightly different, such that you shouldn't do what they did. You should take the different actions. And the actions they took didn't help the situation. If they'd taken the right actions, it would have been mitigated and would have been no concern. But they took the wrong actions. And the funny thing is that plant is so well designed that they took the worst actions they could take, and it still was not a catastrophic failure. I mean, it was obviously a failure, but it was not as bad as it was not anywhere on the scale of other accidents like Chernobyl and Fukushima. I don't want to say minor because there's no such thing as a minor nuclear accident, but but definitely the plant was designed so well that it was. And one of the things they learned is that, the training, the nuclear industry has improved all their training. That's one reason operators go through the training and licensing we go through now. The other is that the control room boards were laid out such that it wasn't obvious which switches were where, if that makes sense. They weren't now they group them in like this system's here and this system's here, so that common systems are in the same area. We also instituted what we call human performance tools. An example is we have a peer check. So if I am if I'm operating a switch in the control room bench board, the guy that's there with me, I'm going to read my procedure. It's going to say operate one SW or one hand switch SW15 alpha, which is the alpha service water pump. And I'm going to turn that on. I'll have the other guy come over there, and before I operate the switch, I have to point to it, and he has to acknowledge that I'm pointing to the right switch to make sure I operate it. So even though the odds of me grabbing the wrong switch are maybe 1 in 10,000, him watching me reduces that to 1 in a million, right? So if I operate the wrong switch, it's on both of us, the peer checker and a lot of times the peer checker is more responsible than the performer. So it's a big deal. I was going to say, I had a hand I played with a friend the other day at the club, and he opened a diamond and I bid 2 diamonds, and I got 6 diamonds in a good hand. And we both make somewhat slam tries, settle in 3 no trump. Yeah. And the lead's made, and I laid down my hand, and like a moron, I laid the diamonds down on the right. And you can instantly see where this is going. And I thought to myself as I'm doing it, I said, I should switch those. But I said, I don't want to insult him by doing that. Yeah. Well, it turns out I should have insulted him because by trick 4, it's obvious he's trying to rough something in his hand because he was trying to decide if we should be in 6 diamonds. And mentally, his mind had switched to 6 diamonds. And a way I could have prevented that, and goes back to is I should have put the diamonds in any other spot other than on there. Yeah. Right. And that would have prevented that accident. That would have been my tool. So after the hand was over, and I was sincere, I apologized and told him I shouldn't have done that. And of course, he said, "No, I should." I said, "No, I created that problem. It should never happen." So it's just
Joe Grew did that.
Same thing.
Joe Grew played 7 hearts. He was in 7 hearts. He thought he was in 7 hearts.
But wanted to be.
I think he was in 7 no, and they had bid and raised hearts.
So he played in hearts.
He played it in hearts.
Yeah.
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 So it's just it's unfortunate because it was so preventable if I just had done one simple thing differently. And that's the way I think of the nuclear industry too. You got to look for ways to make it hard to do the wrong thing and easy to do the right thing.
So have you ever been in a situation that was close to 3 Mile Island? Like,
No. We have different levels of emergency classification based upon what happens, and that goes all the way up from unusual event up to, and then there's an alert, site area emergency, and general emergency. General emergency, you're evacuating the whole site, you're evacuating the public. We haven't had one of those since 3 Mile Island into the industry. We maybe have within the industry 1 or 2 unusual events a year, and that's just things that warrant the attention of the NRC being notified about. I don't remember the last time I heard of a alert in the industry. It's been several years. So that would be something that it just doesn't happen, and we have to make sure it doesn't. That's our jobs. So.
Yeah, because nuclear power, they say it's the best. It's the most. It's the most environmentally.
There's zero carbon, and we're right now we produce roughly 20% of the power in this country. So, I mean, if you shut down 20% of the capacity because we can't operate safely, that's going to skyrocket energy prices. And obviously, with the increasing demand with all the data centers coming online, I don't think we could survive without it. I think it has to be the way forward. In order to do that, we have to have public trust, and public trust goes with safety of operations. So,
well, you're a good spokesperson for it.
Well, thank you. So, I appreciate that because hopefully I'm going to show this to the company, and they won't. No, I'm not saying anything that they would object to. So.
Do you talk about bridge with your colleagues at work? Like, is that?
They all know that I play. Like I had a miserable tournament in Memphis. It was just miserable. And so that day I come back, and the first meeting I'm on, I'm like, well, you don't have to worry about me pursuing my other passion as a career because it's not going to happen. I'm never going to be a professional bridge player. So I'm not quitting tomorrow.
What was so bad about Memphis?
I don't know. It just that no results everything seemed to I just didn't have any good results. You know what I mean? Sometimes they're like that. Another lesson learned was, and this is a little personal, but I learned that you can't do 2 things at the same time. It's funny because the day one of the Celador Pairs, I was playing with Mark Dahl, who I had high hopes of doing well in that event with him. And that morning, I scheduled an interview for my supervisor's retiring. And that morning, they wanted to do my interview, and I was on vacation. I said, well, I can do it this morning. So that morning, I interviewed for the position. And the interview was terrible because I was in the middle of a bridge tournament, so I wasn't focused on the interview. And that afternoon, my bridge was terrible because I was focused on the fact I messed up my interview. So my big lesson learned is if I go to these tournaments, I'm not doing any work. My phone's staying off. I might check my emails in the morning, but I'm not scheduling anything. So that kind of put a bad feel to the whole tournament. Failing to qualify.
Did you make
We did not make it to day 2.
Oh, man.
I was, and it was clearly I just wasn't playing my best. And looking back at it, because I always do what I call lessons learned. I always try to evaluate lessons learned and do my internal post-job critique. I realized that I let that in my bridge affected the interview, and the poor interview affected my bridge later in the day. So, that'd be my takeaway. Is don't try.
Sounds like you didn't get the job.
No, I didn't. I'm frustrated. But that's the way it is. I'm not disappointed because it just means more headaches. And I like what I'm doing now. So,
you said that you play in the Schaefer game, and you said that that's really helped your bridge.
Yeah, I play Schaefer game. I try to play at least once a week, sometimes twice a week. Joyce and myself usually play, and it has really helped. One thing I learned is that I probably have not been aggressive enough in bidding close games and slams. And once again, that goes back to my nuclear training, and that industry is very that industry is very risk adverse. I'm trying to tie them together for you, but that industry is risk adverse, right? We have a stop when unsure policy. If you're not sure of what you're doing, stop. So my theory has always been, if I'm not sure that I'm going to make this game, I'm not going to bid it. And that's generally the wrong view at bridge, right? You got to be reasonably aggressive to get to close games. And one thing it taught me is I have to bid more. So I started bidding more, and it really, really has helped. So, and then playing against people that always defend right, you can't make a mistake. You don't get away with anything. So that's a good thing too.
How often do you and Maureen play?
We play at the club maybe once every 2 weeks. She does not like online bridge very much. She much prefers face to face. She's into psychology, and I think that goes back to that's why she doesn't like to study. She's not technically. She's more of a feel player. So she doesn't like online play because I believe that's probably more technical. So we play once, maybe twice every 3 weeks. And then we play at the local sectionals usually together.
I mean, she's, it's amazing that you got her started from scratch. And, I was thinking she must be she has to be your, one of your proudest accomplishments.
Oh, absolutely. When she actually beat me in the mixed pairs, and I guess it was Louisville last year. And she picked up it's a funny story. I don't know if she told you, but so I was playing with Joyce, and she said she wasn't going to play. She wasn't going to play. And then the day before, she's like, I want to play. So she put her name on the partnership board. And as as a female player, they're in demand. And she got 6-8 calls that night. She's like, I don't know who to choose. I want to line them up like speed dating and interview them, which I thought was just hilarious. And finally, when I'm like, he's the one you want to play with. When he called her, Kyle Rockoff called. He was looking for a partner, and they hit it off. He's such a great person, and good personality for her. Very calm, and they did quite well the first day. And they did okay the second day too. I think they ended like 25th or 27th, something like that. So she did quite well, and so.
How did she rub it in?
She mentions it all the time. Don't worry. It doesn't bother me. It's funny because that same event I had a 62% section top in the second day and was the first person not to qualify, which goes to show you how bad our first session was. Some sessions are just miserable. And my lesson learned there is I have to not let one result affect the rest of my game. I think, once you start having a couple bad results, it snowballs. So you have to just not let that happen.
I was going to say that I thought maybe when you told me earlier about having one board on the table at a time, I thought it was as a means of like just playing that board, like as a reset. Like you take the other board, you take it off the table.
There's something to be said for that. There's a lot to be said
with that deal.
Yeah, and that's probably how I should view it. I have always been an emotional person. I have a strong reaction to adrenaline, so I think that when in bridge, I'm one of those people that has to really force myself to remain calm, and so I'm much better than I used to be. I used to have a temper, and I think that's gone. If you ask people that knew me 15 years ago, they would say I'm a hothead, but I think that's a reputation that's probably well deserved at the time, but I don't think it'd be deserved anymore.
Yeah, I certainly would not. You seem very even tempered.
Yeah, but there was a time where I'm almost embarrassed by how I behaved. But I think a lot of people when they're younger are that way. So it's called maturity, I guess.
Yeah, but I wouldn't. I would not even come close to. Like I said, I led. It was a strong club auction with a hand where I led the 5th best spade as 4th best lead.
Yeah, that was the only one I really wasn't sure of. I just wasn't sure. I know there was probably a reason I never actually got inside your head because we were competing, and I don't like to talk about errors until later.
I think that's a good policy too. That's my preferred policy is not to talk about it until after. The reason I did it was because I knew my right. I forget what they showed or how the auction went, but I just wanted to make them think that they could clear spades like that they could knock it, like if they had to knock out. I didn't think it didn't occur to me that you could have.
I'd had ace jack 10 fourth, I think. Maybe it was something like that. Maybe ace jack 9 4.
No, you had ace queen.
Maybe it was ace queen 4. I don't remember.
No.
But I had unblocked the 9, and I actually
had the king and the 10.
Maybe that's
the
what
king
it
and
was.
the 10.
Maybe that's what it was. And I had to unblock the 10 and finally decided that I wanted to win the last trick so that I could lead a different suit. And if I unblock the 10, then you can cash the 9 and the last.
Because my whole hand was ace, king, jack, fifth of spades. Or no, ace,
jack, 9, fifth. And I had king, 10, fourth. And
maybe it was ace, queen. No, Declare definitely had the jack. This is probably maddening for listeners. I think I had ace, queen, fifth. That was my whole hand. So I wanted to think, like let's say he needs to knock out like your ace in a side suit. I wanted them to think that was okay, but it might not even make sense because like I had 5, so like what's the spade layout?
You wanted to convince them that they couldn't hold, that they didn't have to hold up or something.
Gosh, now I'm gonna feel like it. No,
No, I mean, I figured there's some logic that you wanted to convince Declare the suit was.
I just want them to think that spades weren't gonna get set in spades.
Right.
That's basically what I want. But I don't have an entry, so I don't know why.
And you were right; they weren't going to get set in spades. So.
I kind of need the spades. Like, what's the spade layout where it matters? Because I didn't think about all this until now, obviously, and maybe, like what's the distribution of spades? Because I think we maybe.
I've actually forgotten. I mean, I don't remember the auction. It's been several weeks, so I've since forgotten about that hand. I mean, I remember it existed, but I don't remember.
Yeah,
the hand. I didn't feel like.
Well, you were very, just to put a pin on it, you were very sort of, you were a gentleman about it.
Well, thank you. I do. I appreciate that. It does. That's something I've worked hard at, so that means a lot. Thank you. Well, no, I mean, I think just defensive partnerships are generally both players could have done something when there's a defensive error. Not always, but generally there's.
I'm going to have to think about this and do it offline. Yeah.
It's going to drive you nuts now, isn't it?
I'm a little embarrassed.
No. There's nothing.
Yeah.
The best laid plans don't always work.
Well, maybe someone will listen to this and be able to help me come to the conclusion that I came to all those times ago. All right. What else? What did I miss? You've got some grandchildren, I understand, that you're trying to
I have
teach. 3
grandkids. My 9-year-old grandson, he likes to play hockey, but he likes to read, and then my second oldest, he's 8, and he's trying to learn to play chess. So I think he would be an excellent candidate to learn to teach bridge. And trying to get my daughter to let him get a computer and create a bridge-based account. But so I taught both my kids when they were younger, so they both have been introduced to the game, but neither of them have time or inclination right now. They're both young, have families working, so bridge is more of an older. You have to be an empty nester, I think, in order to dedicate the time to be.
What did they say about your bridge, your children?
They know I play. So I used to have a date night where my first wife and myself would go to the club. That was pretty much what we did we'd go out once a week to the club, go have dinner and go play bridge. This is when I was so they know we play, but they didn't really ever express an interest. So. And it's not something I want to force on anyone. If you don't enjoy it, you should do something else. I mean,
you do some posting on Bridge Winners. Like, do you use that as a sort of to get another opinion, or?
Yeah, I use that as another opinion. I have people, obviously, I think most people do. They reach out for opinions, but my experience with Bridge Winners is that people like to be very critical, and and condescending, I think. So I don't think I post there as much as I probably would like to, just because I don't feel like listening to or reading some of the comments. But I do go there and read the articles, and there's some interesting stuff. Um, so, but I do post hands that I thought were interesting, or I'll have a I won't get a consensus agreement from people on what you should do. So I figure it's a good way to get other opinions.
Well, I hope you'll ask me for a bidding problem sometime.
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to think. I'll send you a couple. Maureen and myself have used Mark Dahl as a to solve a couple discussions, and he explains things very well. But I will put you on my list of people to ask if it's questionable. Usually it's Maureen says, "That's not right," and so I have to convince her she is, and she says, "You're not right."
Yeah, Mark is definitely one of the best players in Virginia. That's
yeah.
I don't have any doubt about that. All right.
Well, no, I appreciate your time. Me? No, but if you ever have any openings, let me know. I'd be happy to play again sometime.
Okay.
So enjoyed it. It was fun. I didn't feel like either of us played our best last time, but I thought we played well in that sectional. But there's a difference between sectional competition and regional. So competition wasn't as good. But I don't feel like we played as well either. Neither one of us were sharp as we could be. But regardless, thank you much, and I appreciate your time.
Yeah, this has been fun.